Hello, Dohackers. Today I want to talk about the world from the Dohack franchise. In the first generation of Dothack, we had new generation online, The World, as it was called. It was never called The World R1. That was an after effect after the later iterations such as The World R2, The World RX, The World Force Arrow, The World Armed Conflict, Versus the World, and The World Revice Age. But I want to focus solely here on the first version of the world. We didn't get much information about the world, unlike the World R2, which had its own backstory in the Dohack GU video games. No, we were pretty much scraping for any information about the world as we could, other than the obvious mysterious events that were given to us throughout the whole franchise. So let's go back to a book called Dohack Archives, Volume 3. This hardback, paperback, and digital book, on particularly page 277, gave us this text, as you see right here, in Japanese. Putting this into Google Translate, I was able to get some information about what the world is. So, if we go back to the world, which, reminder, was a MMORPG that you could play using a VR headset controller, and the VR headset was optional. You could use just a monitor according to Dothack AI Buster. But this game puts you into this fictional fantasy RPG game that most of us know. Now, this is the game within the game, so to speak. If you were to play the video games Dohack Infection, watch the anime Dohack Sign, read the manga Dohack Legend of the Twilight, this is the setting that all these three games take place in. And then this game within the game was created by Harold. This German programmer here created a game called Fragments. And no, I don't mean that fragment. I'm talking about Fragments, which was a completely different game, sort of, from the world. Fragment used letters instead of keywords. You would have to type out different letters and numbers to give you different generated fields and dungeons. So Harold created Fragments. He didn't create the world. When CC Corporation, as it is in game, CC Corporation bought Fragment from Harold and redubbed it The World with a few changes here and there. But they didn't understand what they purchased. They just saw a game that was developed, put a little spin on it with a name, and then put some attributes such as elements and whatnot, and a few other things. But when Harold created the world, he based it off a poem created by Emma Wylant. This poem that we all know is the basis of the world. That poem is the Epitaph of Twilight. So this was his basis for creating the world. But let's focus more back onto the main subject, Dohack Archives, Volume 3, of this text that you see right here. So as it says, translated from Google, the world of the world. In the world, 3025. So this is set over 1,000 years from our current present day. A magma energy extracted experiment was conducted as a global project. However, the experiment was originally intended to bring prosperity to the people, ended in failure, and the control device went out of control. The uncontrollable magma energy caused volcanoes around the world to explode, and the magma engulfed about 1/3 of the planet's surface and all living things. The remaining 2/3 of the planet was also severely damaged by the blasts. Volcanic bombs, toxic gases, and the blocking of sunlight by the flying dust resulted in the tragedy of civilization being destroyed in an instant. After that, the flying dust blocked sunlight and prevented it from reaching the planet. An ice age came to Earth, and the magmatic dust made it almost impossible to use electronic devices. As a result, people were forced to give up almost all of civilization they had once possessed. The sky was covered with black dust, absorbing all light. So there was no day or night on the surface of the earth. It was cold every day. Ash rain fell. Crops could not grow, and food was in short supply. Some people also froze to death, while others starved to death. People died one after another from the cold and hunger. At that time, the adventurer Philly encountered the Tartarga tribe, an underground lake. The Tartarga tribe had been living on the shores of the underground lake for thousands of years, completely unrelated to the civilization of Philly, and had their own culture. That unique culture was the culture of patterns. The Tartarga people believed that patterns drawn with prayers to spirits with great emotion would have the power of the spirits. As proof, Tartarga chief of the Tartarga tribe drew a wind pattern on a rusty knife that Fili had in his possession. The Tartarga told Fili, "Try cutting that mulberry tree with that knife." Fili replied, "You can't cut a mulberry tree with a knife, much less a rusty knife. You can't even cut hair with it." "I won't do that," I thought to myself. But as I did, as I was told, and slashed away the tree fell with a thud, and the cut edge was so smooth as if it has been cut with a plane. Tartarga continued, "Feely, if the power of your feelings is strong, you will be able to cut down even living trees, and your strong and pure feelings will eventually reach the Twilight Dragon and bring light back to this world." Afterwards, Feely returned to the city with some of the patterns he had learned from the Tartarga. Patterns he had learned from the Tartarga enriched people's lives. By drawing fire patterns on fireplaces, people could keep warm with less firewood, and fewer people froze to death. By drawing fire, water, and wind patterns on the fields, crops began to grow. Even after the dust cleared and the light of the sunlight had reached Earth, people did not forget to be grateful to the spirits and began to worship the Tartarga god, the Twilight Dragon. In this way, material civilization and pattern culture were fused. And as a result, spells and patterns were efficiently organized and developed. A few hundred years later, changes began to appear in the wild creatures. This was because the heartless people had used patterns against the wild creatures. The wild creatures gained power from the patterns and were transformed one by another into monsters. The monsters attacked adventurers, travelers, traders, and others, one after another. The damage caused by the monsters didn't stop there, but also spread to the city. The spell users created barriers around towns to prevent monsters from entering, and created chaos gates to create a network between towns. They also set traps outside the towns, trapping monsters in magic circles. Thus, the towns were separated from the outside world, creating the world. So that's the story of the world. One thing I wanted us to note here about chaos gates, it's not in this text. I forget which text it is in, but it is out there. Chaos gates got their names from the inventor of them, Chaos. Chaos was a wave master who created these gates. Thus, they are called Chaos Gates, much like how Harold's Gate is called Harold's Gate, and the gate that Helba created is called Helba's Gate. So bear that in mind. And that is the lore of the world, a place that takes thousands of years in the future where humanity decided to use magnetic energy and it went wrong and destroyed the surface of the world. People went underground to survive. And they met some civilization down underground that told them how to create patterns, wave marks, as you will, to enrich their lives. But those patterns became curse, hence the curse wave. The story that we were told in Epitaph of Twilight, talking about the curse wave and talking about the um, the Twilight Dragon and Philly the White. All this is interconnected. This is the world that Harold created when he created Fragment. And this is the world that CC Corporation inherited when they purchased the Fragment from Harold. Unbeknown to them, all these things are all interconnected. And one thing that is interesting in the Epitaph of Twilight that's not mentioned in this text, they talk about Albas, lakes, boils. Alba is the continent in which the world is taking place on. It's been 1,000 years. The magmatic energy shifted continents around, and those continents became one super giant continent called Alba, much like how Pangea was in our world back thousands of years ago. So, with that, that is everything from the text from Dohack Archives. Let me know what you think about the world now that you understand from CyberConnect 2, not CC Corp. CyberConnect 2 wrote in Dothack Archives Volume 3. And if you get a chance, be sure to get that book, whether it's the hardback, paperback. They are no longer officially available from CyberConnect 2, but the digital version is. You can get that on Amazon, Bookwalker, and a few other digital sites that offer digital books for reading. Again, these books are in Japanese, so you will have to use Google Translate, DeepL, or any other translating services in order to translate those texts into English or your own native language if it's not English. But I found that very fascinating, and it makes the world more realized, organized, and a place to understand where all these things are coming from. For example, the dungeons, castles, the fields, the monsters, it all is connected based off these events from the world. With that, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.